this is a hugely complex project. Like, we manage a huge number of buildings. There's individual, but there's a huge number of community buildings. We manage 260 acres of land, so that's pastures. We've got about 90 acres in a conservation area, so that's supporting the forest to reforest itself. We only eat the vegetables that we grow, so that's not a game. It's not like if it doesn't grow, you run out and buy it. We do without it. We've got huge numbers. So managing the infrastructures, the waters, the roads, things breaking down, fridges, and so on. So if people have a good relationship with each other, you can do that. You can't otherwise. And if people pull their weight, you can do it. Yeah. So, and it's a very satisfying thing to do, because we have I don't have to have a washing machine here, because there's a communal washing machine, and there's lots of communal facilities. I've got a fantastic wood workshop and a metal workshop and a meditation hall and communal house and all of that. So it's that you can have, the sharing of resources if you can manage cooperatively the running of them. Yeah, so people return tools to the place so other people can find them, and it's just that commitment and remembering that you're not an isolated person, and that the consultation, there's a lot of things involved in it, but it's a very satisfying thing to know that you're doing your bit and that all these other little bits are taken care of, and I can go away for a week and my bits get taken care of, the whole thing gets taken care of, and then someone else can go away and so on. So we have a lot of freedom in that way. That level of commitment also gives you a lot of freedom. I mean, people just crave community. People really, really want community. And I used to lead these dharma yatras where we'd do a mindfulness walk with 35 people for 7 days in the bush, and it's an instant community. And the thing at the end of it, people said what they loved about it was the community. And people crave it, but they do not have the capacity to do it, because it takes a lot of self-reflection to be able to live in community. And it's incredibly sad that we're a culture where so many people live on their own. There's so much loneliness, so much isolation, so much lack of support for families and so on. People who come here and they see what you can do with community are committed to the work that it requires to keep the interpersonal interactions harmonious. In about the late 80s, I realised I was working in a manager in welfare, and people started. I was chairperson of 5 committees in the local area, and I thought, I'm this because no one wants to do it. But then I suddenly realised it's not that. It's because I could do it. And so I thought, I can do this as a consultancy. So I became, for 25 years, I have worked as a consultant in conflict management in organisations and in all sorts of different organisations. So I did get it from the ground up, not from a university degree, but it just meant that I had a particular facility for aptitude for facilitating meetings, and so it just interests me, the process of interpersonal harmony and development and so on. So, now what I'm doing is passing that information and that skill on to people here, because you have to have that, and people have to be able to resolve conflict. And just walking down the hill this morning, someone asked me about conflict and expectation. So people do, what's the relationship in a negotiation of expectations and so on. And so that is easy territory for me. I know it back to front.
So what are some of the key pointers if someone were to watch this and say, right, I'm trying to either to work things out in my company or my community, what are the key things you would put into some sort of agreement? Or
Oh well, first of all, you have to look at our culture is a culture of blame. Who's to blame? And we have this thing: you made me do it. You make me feel. You make me do this. It's because of what you do that I do this. So it's your fault. If you weren't like this, I wouldn't be like this. That's our whole culture. So you have to. That's not actually how it operates. It's co-created, and you have to look at your role in it, and you have to. The strongest. If all the communication skills you only used active listening or empathy, that is the most powerful one, because it allows you to get some understanding of the other person's perspective, and even if you don't agree with it, and one of the hardest things is to actually hold your own perspective and hold also the belief that the other person's perspective is valid. That is incredibly hard to do. So we're not perfect at it, and people spit the dummy, and there are fights, but it doesn't destroy us. It doesn't pull us apart. And people, they might pull away like a couple, that you keep away from each other for a while, and then you work it out. But it's because conflict is a natural, is just a signal that something's wrong, and it's just whether you're skillful in it or not skillful in it. So being able to listen to the other person's perspective, and I think not labeling and calling the other person names, because once you do that, you make them a them, and you stay in they're wrong and I'm right and so on. So that I think that would be the essence of it. And if you do that, then there's lots of processes you can use for negotiating an outcome based on your needs are this, and my needs are this. So the other bit of it is that you have to know what your needs are, and most people don't know what their needs are. What the energy is used in doing is to try and make the other person do something different, rather than say, oh, okay, so this is happening, what are my needs here? And you go from a needs-based perspective rather than I'm going to manipulate you to be how I want you to be, because it will never work. And it doesn't work in couples, and a community is a couples, to the power of whatever it is. So it just simply never works, and you end up in, just an infinity loop of going nowhere. So they would be the key things.